Hey everyone, so Katy Anderson here, and I'm here to talk to you about two things today: Esther and social distancing. One of those things we haven't heard of in a long time. The other thing, you are covering your ears because I said the word social distancing, and you're so done with hearing that. And trust me, as we're working at Costco, I too am sick of saying the word social distancing and doing this and backing up all the time. So there are some real annoyances in our lives, but today kind of what I want to do is I actually just want to tackle those annoyances and just really kind of put it in for tangible terms on ways that we can not just cope, but also kind of conquer all these annoying new norms for us in this time. So first, I just kind of want to start off with a little story of my past, something that I was recently reminded of when I was talking with a bunch of friends that's actually super applicable to right now. And that is when I finished my year at my torchbearer, which is a gap year, and went to work as a camp counselor. I had a kind of unique role as a camp counselor where I was an extreme camp counselor, which basically means that I lived outdoors for 3 months in a tree house with a new group of kids every single week. So some of that sounds really interesting, and it was an unforgettable experience. But after the first month of sleeping outside, living in a tree house, constantly cycling through new campers every week, where each week is new for them, but it's not new for me, you can kind of see how that repetition and just the general amount of being outdoors would kind of get overwhelming. So when I was there, it was actually one of the rainiest summers that the state of Georgia, where I was one of the rainiest summers that they had had in a long time. So now when you equate rainiest summer with an open air treehouse, all of a sudden it's like, that doesn't sound fun anymore. And that's exactly how I felt. It wasn't fun anymore. And so I had this other counselor with me. Her name was Erica. And so she had one side of the treehouse and I had the other side of the treehouse. And we worked kind of as a team, but we also had like our separate responsibilities. So it had been so rainy that we had this constant, almost like mudslide, just constantly going through the center of our camp. And it was so annoying because you were so always dirty. But one day, the kids were really bored because a lot of our activities had to get canceled because it was no longer safe. They looked at this mudslide and they were like, oh my gosh, it's a slide. And so they wanted to go sliding through the mud so badly. And I was like, no. And Erica looked at me and she was like, Katy, for the king. And so what had happened is during camp, like as the summer went on and as we just got more tired and our excitement and anxiety over needing to be excited, as all that grew, we were like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? And so we came up with this saying, was just for the king. So I'm doing this because of Jesus. I'm not doing this for me. I'm not doing it for the kids. The only way I'm going to get through this is if it's like, okay, Jesus, this is for you. So for the king. And every time that any counselor, any staff would say for the king, it was like our minds and our bodies totally shifted into alignment with our spirit. And so all of this excitement and anxiety and stress and all of a sudden, it just all came back into place. And we were able to do these things. We were able to go through a mudslide. And so that was just kind of just a really cool thing that got us through like the rest of that rainy summer, was just looking at each other and being like, hey, for the king. Whether it be sarcastic or whether it be completely genuine, the results were exactly the same every time, as we felt ourselves come back together and be like, okay, Jesus, I'm here because you called me here, not because I wanted to be wet 24/7. And so as I was thinking about that phrase, for the king, I started really thinking about Esther. And then as I started thinking about Esther, I realized how her life was a life kind of defined by the phrase for the king, but also defined by social distancing. Because Esther, like if you don't know, basically she became queen through a beauty pageant. She got taken from her uncle, which was the only family that she had, and was thrust into this beauty pageant, which she ended up winning because, again, for the king. She just kept saying, yes, God, here we go. And God just carried her right on through. But even though that sounds really great and amazing, and it's clear that God had his favor, it doesn't mean that there weren't hardships along the way for her. So Esther, one, has to social distance from her uncle, her only family, because in this time, Esther, who is a Jew, the Jewish people are in a really scary time where a lot of the authorities and the rulers don't actually want the Jewish people to exist at all. So to now be queen and Jewish is a super scary kind of parody to be in. And so Esther is social distancing from her uncle. She has to social distance from the life that she knew and be an entirely different kind of person because you can't let on that, oh, I'm a Jew. So social distancing from her very identity. And then also social distancing from her new king, her husband. Rules are way different. They can't just be buddy-buddy. There's rules, there's protocol that she has to follow. And so even through all of this social distancing, Esther and her uncle Mordecai are able to communicate and are able to talk about what's going on. And Uncle Mordecai is able to coach her, to help her, to guide her. Even though they can't be like face to face, they're still finding ways to make this new situation work. And so through all of this, Esther finally is like, okay, you know what? In order to save my people, I need to just like, for the king, like whatever this means, Jesus, this is 100% for you. So in saying for the king, Esther is signing up to do some really scary things because now she has to go against the social distancing and the protocol. And she has to go into the throne room uninvited, unannounced, and say, hey, I need help. I'm in trouble. And so through a series of events, she finally gets to come forward to King Xerxes and say, hey, I'm a Jew. My people are in trouble. They are going to be executed. And so through all of this and through Esther's life and all of her obedience and all of her just saying, hey, this is not about me, for the king, Jesus, I am in this place only because of you. So please don't let me go on my own way. But Jesus, for the king, for you. And so through all of that obedience, God shows up for her and protects the entire people. And which is an amazing kind of concept when you just realize, like, this woman just stepped out. She didn't know what was going to happen. She didn't know if she was going to die. But she was like, hey, like, this is what I need to do. This is what I've been called to do. So while we've been called to social distance, to stay home, that doesn't mean that God is going to be like, oh, sorry, I have to stay 6 feet away from you. You're not essential right now. Because whether you're home, whether you're out working, whether you're trying to get through school online, maybe you're trying to be a parent with a child who's doing school online and it's a brand new experience, I just want to encourage you, just with the phrase for the king, that even in such a crazy time as this, the coronavirus, quarantine, self-distancing, all of these really weird new terms that are our new normal, they don't actually get to stand in the way of what God has called us to do. It doesn't alter God's timeline for the plan he has on your life or for the gifts that he has for you and the favor that he wants to bestow on you. So I just want you to take just that simple phrase, for the king, and figure out, how does that apply to me? How does that apply in my life? What do I need to say for the king to? And so those are just some things that I was really thinking about this week and just wanted to share with you guys. Again, still miss you a lot, still wondering what's going on, but just really thankful that we have the technology and that I get to not really see you, but know that you're seeing me at some point. All right. Bye, everyone.